today. Good evening and welcome to the July 20th, 2026 Finance Committee meeting. Will clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Tech.
Here.
Alderman Novit. Here. Alderman Powers.
Here.
Alderman Kerr. Here. Alderman Levert.
Here.
Alderman Bothfeld.
Here.
Alderman Walther.
Here.
Alderman Culbertson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Ordinarily, this meeting would be chaired by Alderman Clemens. However, he's riding his bicycle in Iowa right now, so I will attempt to fill in for him. The first item on the agenda is consideration of minutes from the Finance Committee meeting held on April 20th, 26. The minutes are in your packet. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
This is just a voice vote, yeah? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None. The motion passes. The second item is the annual report of the Cemetery Commission. This will be presented by the Honorable John Anderson, Cemetery Commission Chair. Mr. Anderson.
How are you? Thank you for the opportunity to present our annual report from the Cemetery Commission for this past fiscal year. My report includes an update recap of the cemetery investment portfolio and our performance, how our investment and financial activities conform with our investment policy for the commission, as well as a few other items that you've asked the commission or the committee has asked about in the past that impact our operations and our future projections. So we'll include a few of those items as well. As I have done in the past, I will start this presentation with the Lake Forest Cemetery Commission's mission statement. Our commission's work is grounded in and directed by the principles in this mission statement, which covers our commissioners' core responsibilities, including the stewardship of the cemetery and its resources, in effect, our financial assets, as well as certainly the cemetery property and its natural resources, both for today and for the future generations of our Lake Forest families. Up here would be our cemetery funds investment policy. The Cemetery Commission is guided by a very clear set of guardrails and objectives, which are included in this comprehensive policy. The commission adheres to that policy and directs our investment advisor, and that's currently William Blair, to follow and conform with the provisions of that policy. Our investment advisor provides a robust review of the performance of our investment portfolio in total and across our various cemetery care accounts to our commission at each of our quarterly meetings. It's important to note that our invested assets are mainly intended to fund the cemetery's future maintenance needs once all the graves and niches have been sold, and I'll present some projections a bit later for that, and also to fund some capital improvements periodically if needed. Of course, these funds could be used as a safety net for our current operating expenses, but our operating expenses are generally well covered by our operating revenues and reserves, and our intention has been not to touch our invested assets for the current operating expenses in the short term. Our investment policy was updated 5 years ago, and under that policy we are required to conduct an assessment every 5 years of the performance and the relationship with our investment advisor. This evaluation is now underway and actually will be considered as part of the Commission's work later this week. So we are doing that right now. This next slide is a graphic summary of the total value of the cemetery's combined funds, including our cash accounts. As already mentioned, these funds are currently managed by our advisory team at William Blair, except for those cash reserves which are held in the city's bank account. This recap compares our total asset value at the end of the fiscal year 2026, 4/30/2026, versus the start of that fiscal year, and then we also show a comparison back to 5 years, back to May 1st of 2021 as a comparison. As of 4/30/2026, our total funds were roughly at $16.5 million, Our investment portfolio is a balanced and fairly conservative, safe portfolio, and we are focused on a stable, long-term investment strategy because we are not using these funds for near-term needs. Our portfolio has benefited from a diversified exposure with an approach that has served us well over the years. Roughly 70% of the portfolio is invested in U.S. and international equities, and we continue to favor investing in quality, profitable companies rather than more speculative equities. So as noted at the bottom of this slide, we had a 16% increase in total value year over year during fiscal year 2026. And that's generally in keeping with the prevailing market performance in equity and fixed income markets for that period. Also, our combined funds have increased by 35% during the past 5 years. And although not shown here, our total funds have increased by nearly 430% since 2008 when we first retained William Blair. And I should point out, if we actually move forward from April 30th to 6/30 to June 30th, our total values are nearly at $17 million. That's a 3% additional increase in value over 4/30, over April 30th. So our portfolio definitely, with a 3% gain, and our portfolio definitely outperformed our blended benchmark for the second quarter of 2026. We have to acknowledge that this past year was a volatile one for the markets. There was a significant bounce back in equity after the Liberation Day in April 2025, Liberation Tariff Day in 2025. Of course, there were significant changes in the market during the year from the impact of the expanding capabilities of artificial intelligence. But there was also a negative drag, negative impact from the war in the Middle East, and with renewed inflation concerns and uncertainty about interest rates. So it was a very interesting, challenging year for us as we looked at our investments throughout the year, but we seemed to survive much of that. So one more point about our cash. Our total cash available is roughly $1.8 million for the cemetery. Our general rule is to keep cash reserves in city accounts in an amount that is more than sufficient to cover at least 1 year's normal budgeted operating expenses at the cemetery, which roughly are about $1.3 million. And we continue to monitor our cash position and our use of cash reserves as needed. So that's all part of the slide here. The next slide, at the table of this slide, it presents our investment asset distribution as of April 30th of this year versus last year, and compares that distribution to our allowable asset allocation range and mid-range targets per our investment policy. Cash plus fixed income investments comprise 29% of our portfolio. That's in line with our mid-range target of 30%. Total domestic equities comprise 53%, generally in line with our mid-range target of 50%. Total international equity investments are at 18%. It's near our mid-range target of 20%. As I've already indicated, our capital expenditures are generally funded from cemetery operating revenues. We've only had to dip into the reserves in our investment accounts on a very limited basis. And also, as indicated at the bottom of the slide, the cost of our recent Memorial Garden renovation back in 23-24, that project was funded both by a loan from the city of $905,000, which now has an outstanding balance of $633,500, and it'll be fully repaid in 7 years. And that's from our operating revenues generated by cemetery services and/or investment gains realized by the Commission's unrestricted investment portfolio. The next page, next slide, the top graphic of this next slide shows the distribution of our domestic equity investments, which comprise slightly more than 1/2 of our portfolio, with a lion's share of our equity investments in large cap and mid cap company stocks, although we do continue to have a portion, although modest, in small cap equity investments. And then the table below that presents a comparison of our portfolio's performance versus our primary blended market benchmarks for the past 6 years. Our investment portfolio was good. Performance was good for the past fiscal year, ending in April, although modestly slightly below the benchmark. But our investment portfolio's performance has been strong and has exceeded the benchmark 4 out of the past 6 years. Again, we have to keep in mind that our investment strategy is on longer-term results because we are not focused on the use of funds during the near term. So we'll move away from our investment results to talking about capital projects. The cemetery continues to have some significant capital improvement expenditures, and we had those in the past year, and we certainly will have that in the year ahead. The cemetery's service roads have been patched and repaved this past year. We completed needed tuck pointing and restoration of the barrel entrance arch to the cemetery. We continued to improve access and appearance of water faucets for families throughout the cemetery. And we embarked on a multi-year project to address monuments that need to be re-leveled in the cemetery. And that's a multi-year project with an outside contractor. Looking forward, and this is the big one, we will need to repair and restore the cemetery's main ravine. That's to the east and the north of the cemetery near the lake. This is a large and costly project, in total likely more than $2 million. The concrete trough in the bottom of the main ravine at the cemetery has deteriorated at a more rapid pace than expected. This project will be partially funded by a grant from the Illinois EPA, and we intend to complete this by September of 2027. So we think roughly 60% of that will be covered by the grant. Our capital expense budget also includes ongoing multi-year repairs to the cemetery's roadways and storm sewage systems, and continued work on monument leveling where needed throughout the cemetery. So where are we in terms of availability and projections? Today, the cemetery includes more than 15,000 graves, with 2,008 of these grave sites, about 13%, currently available and ready for purchase. The cemetery property also includes a few platted and reserved sections, as well as unplatted areas that have not been developed yet, and these could provide more than 900 additional grave spaces in the future. And separate from the graves, we have we actually have 1,850 niches in total at the expanded Memorial Garden. And 1,169 of these niches, 63%, are currently available for purchase. As I've said earlier, our invested assets are generally intended to fund the future operating expenses once all graves and niches have been sold. And as shown in this slide, we do not anticipate reaching that point for at least 50 to 60 or more years, based on some conservative projections using our historical sales and interment patterns. It's worth noting that the last several years have been strong sales years for the cemetery, so this has caused our years of projected availability to shorten slightly. We sold 97 lots and niches this past fiscal year, 64 graves and 33 niches. And that's roughly the same as the prior year. And for your reference, we had 74 interments during fiscal year 2026. That's about two-thirds, and about two-thirds of those were involving cremations. And given the increase in cremations, we should point out that we do have undeveloped property at the cemetery where we could build a new additional columbarium, and that would potentially expand our inventory of niches significantly. Lastly, the Cemetery Commission includes 5 members, and the current commissioners are listed here on the slide. All are dedicated to their oversight duties and are proud stewards of the city's cemetery. And we work closely with the cemetery sexton and the excellent cemetery staff, as well as terrific support from our assistant city manager and city staff. So thanks for your time, and any questions from the Finance Committee?
Are there any questions for Mr. Anderson? Comments? Alderman Powers.
John, thank you very much.
Sure.
As you plan this ravine restoration, what is that process? Do you find your own?
We don't. We
Right.
work with the city very directly, the city engineering very directly, and they're very much involved in this and have done much of the actual engineering and research work around it, obviously retaining experts from the outside. So we as a commission and we as a cemetery have depended, if you will, on the city's resources.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And Jason, the grant that John was referring to is $1.1 million. So that's very helpful, I would
Yep.
say.
We're
Excellent.
grateful.
Anything else for Mr. Anderson? Yes.
I just want to thank you for the incredible financial stewardship that the cemetery has, and seeing it tonight, it's just very impressive and great for everybody in
Thanks.
the community. So thank you for
Appreciate
that.
Appreciate the feedback. Thanks.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For everything. Very good. The next item on the agenda is Fire and Police Pension Board investments. This will be presented by Katie Skibby.
Right. Historically, the city has had the police and fire pension boards present to the city council their investment returns and investments. Since the consolidation, the Illinois Firefighters Pension Investment Fund and the Illinois Police Officers Pension Fund now manage investments, but we do annually look at the investment returns since those returns tie directly to actuarial valuations and the annual tax levy. So in the past 5 years, investment returns have been somewhat volatile, but overall we've had a net positive. F121 saw exceptionally strong markets, followed by a down year in 22, which reflected some broader market losses that year. And then FY23 was flat, and FY24 and 25, we returned to a more steadier, moderate return. This is closer to what we would expect in a normal year. In 2026, we had a great year for investment returns. The police return was 23.4% and fire was 21.4%. So on this graph, you'll see that the green line is our assumed rate of return, and then the orange line is the 5-year moving average for police, and the purple line is a 5-year moving average for fire. Over the last 5 years, we only had 1 year where the police investments actually had the moving average dipped below that 6.5%, but that was only to 6.13%. Our goal is to keep that moving average above the assumed rate of return. The swings that happen from year to year are exactly why our actuaries smooth investment returns, because we don't want to see large swings in our defined contributions based on market returns. And there are many different factors that go into determining our annual required contributions. But if we continue to see market returns in excess of 6.5%, it should help decrease future increases. So included in the Finance Committee packet, this is the IPPIF and IPPOPIF monthly reports to provide the underlying detail to this year's number. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments for Director Skibby? Alderman Powers.
Katie, the funding of the police fund and the fire fund, I believe in 24, police was at 57.5% funded, and then fire was like 70.7. Do you have an indication of where we are kind of as of 26?
Sure. Our 26 numbers are still preliminary, but right now we are expecting police to be at 73.6% funded and fire at 83.4% funded. So this is largely due in part to City Council's decision to put extra contributions towards police and fire pensions because it really has steadily strengthened both funds' funding ratios, reducing the city's long-term risk and its reliance on investment returns. And then the good investment returns obviously have made that an even stronger decision and helped that as well.
That's great. And the state requirement by 2040 is that we be 90% funded. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But we, as a city, are focused on being 100% funded?
That is-
I mean, that's what we've discussed in past councils anyway.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Great news.
Any other comments, questions? Yes,
one.
Rosemary?
Katie, what return on an average basis is the state using to determine their defined contribution?
So the state uses a 7.25% rate.
Okay.
We use a different rate. So we have decided to be more aggressive in paying down our unfunded liability. And so we are using the 6.5% rate.
Okay. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? And just for public education, at the present time, our contributions are essentially flat. Is that correct? For the foreseeable future?
That is not quite correct.
Okay.
We go into this more at the October Finance Committee meeting, but we have been seeing about $100,000 increase per fund per year. And that's based on a lot of different factors, including if someone receives a line of duty pension, if we have people living longer than we expected for actuarial contributions. So we'll get into that a lot in October, but they are increasing a little bit.
On a percentage basis, what would you say that is?
So I think for police, we contribute about $4 million. So it's a relatively small percent.
Okay, so if not absolutely flat, effectively flat. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And now then, the next item is the 2028 budget calendar, and this will be presented again by Director Skibby.
Okay, included in your packet is the 2028 budget calendar. There have been no significant changes from prior year, but the couple key dates to pay attention to really are the capital budget workshop in November and then the budget workshop in March. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the budget calendar.
And obviously, the schedule is in your packet. Any comments or questions regarding the schedule? All right, at this point, we move on to other business. Items include the May flash report. So I would just recommend that you look at your packet and work through that. Let's see, this is also published on the city's website for those who have interest. Next item is included in this evening's city council agenda is final approval of the fiscal year 2027 appropriations ordinance and rollovers. This will be a separate public hearing, and the supportive information is in the council packet. Next item is pension subcommittee meeting. The pension subcommittee has a scheduled meeting. It's August 11th at 2 p.m. At that time, the city's actuary will present draft actuarial results for the fire and police pension funds as of April 30th, 2026. And this is for members of the Lake Forest Fire Pension Board and Lake Forest Police Pension Board. Details will be provided in October. The next item, State of Illinois fiscal 2027 budget. On June 1st, the General Assembly passed a 2027 budget, signed into law on June 16th. This is included in your packet as the Municipal League's assessment of the session summary and providing an overview of the budget and other legislative matters. The fiscal year 2027 budget maintains the local government distributive fund formula at 6.47%, and thankfully rejecting the governor's proposed reduction to 6.28%. This would have cost significant monies to local governments. Other shared revenues remain consistent with 2026. The budget also creates some new taxes on social media companies, digital assets, sports betting, on prediction markets, fantasy sports, remote tobacco retailers, in an effort to close the state's revenue gap. These apply at the state level, not the local level. Next is shared revenue projections. The Illinois Municipal League provides us an analysis of this, and this is also attached in your packet, if there's any questions or concerns about that. The next item is an opportunity for the public to address the Finance Committee. Is there anyone present that would like to address the Finance Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Done. It'll be 5 minutes.